Nearly 10 months into Trump 2.0, the Trump administration has finally approved its first arms sales package to Taiwan, valued at potentially $330 million. The proposed package for non-standard components, spare and repair parts, consumables and accessories, as well as repair and return support for X-16, C-130, and indigenous defense fighters aircrafts. This potential boost to Taiwan defenses came amidst heightened tension further north between China and Japan, of course. So I guess natural question that we wonder then is, arms sale at this timing, what would be the kind of message that U.S. thinking of sending, if any, to perhaps Taiwan, China, or other countries in the region?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that it's highly expected that during this second Trump administration, there's going to be a lot of arms sales. During the first Trump administration, we saw the historic height in terms of arms sales to Taiwan. And so far, since Trump took office, this is the first one. So it's significant in the sense that it's the first one during Trump 2.0, but also there was a lot of media reports saying how the Trump administration, in order to strike a deal with China, has been avoiding some of the Taiwan-related issues. And you could see that, this arms sales package probably wouldn't have come through before the U.S.-China summit during APEC. So I think timing is also very important. Basically, it shows that the U.S. is still committed to arms sales to Taiwan, but it didn't really want to offend China before the summit took place. This is kind of how I read it, and I think it's still very consistent with the U.S. policy toward Taiwan as well as China.
Do you see any marked differences in terms of Taiwan's place in the U.S. foreign policy when it comes to this? Like, how is Taiwan and China respective weight, if anything, shifting at all in the, foggy bottom?
I think ostensibly there's no real change when it comes to U.S. policy towards Taiwan, right? If you want to talk about the fundamentals, nothing have changed because the president in the White House actually doesn't know that much about Taiwan policy and doesn't trust that much in terms of his national security colleagues or staff to actually come up with a consistent Taiwan policy, right? It's just coming out of his mouth. Now, given that, I don't think Trump would go that far to do anything that drastically differ from past U.S. policy toward Taiwan. As some people were worried, I don't think Trump would go that far. However, unlike previous presidents who see Taiwan as a very strategic interest to the United States, especially when it comes to defense and the First Island chain, values, democracy and human rights, I don't think Trump sees eye to eye in that sense. But in reality, the actual doing or policy probably won't change that much, which means he's not gonna challenge China on Taiwan. He's also not gonna, hopefully, sacrifice Taiwan for China either.
Indeed, and Raymond, I guess then what's your take on this? What's Taiwan's place in Washington at the moment? Is it talk about perhaps a grand bargain or something? Yeah. Just hot air, or are you concerned about that at all?
I agree that the fundamentals has not been changed, and the U.S. even the Trump administration or Trump himself has a very clear strategic view. He knows about the importance of Taiwan and, of course, the critical position that Taiwan occupies in terms of supplying the world and the United States on the very top chips, semiconductors, and also to helping the U.S. to rebuild its capability to manufacture the chips. So Taiwan could be a partner to U.S., a natural partner. And I think Trump himself knows it, and of course the policy has changed, and that does not only apply to Taiwan; it applies to any countries that has trading relations with the U.S. that are friends or foes, no matter. And so, but out of this, the so-called transactional approaches to the diplomacy. And actually, we are seeing an opening or a slight gradually opening the windows of more opportunity to cooperation on the U.S. and Taiwan. And secondly, if you talk to the bureaucrats, you now see that the day-to-day cooperation in terms of security actually has been going on. So arms sales, all those reported, that's accordance to U.S. policy, accordance to the Taiwan Relations Act. And but it's even more important to us that's the day-to-day cooperations and the constant dialogues that the both sides are engaging in are actually happening and getting more close. That's why our president, Taiwan President William Lau, has said, actually the U.S. cooperation with Taiwan has actually getting closer, not more remote.
And Wenqi, so I guess Raymond talked about economic value of Taiwan to Trump administration, to U.S. in general. Can you just expand on that a little bit more? Like what economic value does Taiwan have for U.S., both bilaterally and perhaps also in a regional sense?
Well, I think let's look at it at two levels. First is when we talk about Trump or Trump administration, right, we need to distinguish between Trump, he himself with his cabinet level people and the rest of the government. These are more professional foreign policy makers who are traditionally more friendly to Taiwan. But if you're looking at the people at the top who have less direct government experience or almost zero Taiwan experience, these people don't value Taiwan as much other than business. So whether it's Lutnick or Trump himself, I do not personally believe that they see Taiwan as a true partner in any sense. They look at Taiwan as some place where it can offer the U.S. semiconductors related values, nothing else. And I think this is something Taiwan has to realize and just be very realistic about what this current administration top leaders are thinking, right? It doesn't mean other things like arms sales or other more regular type of diplomacy won't continue because the rest of the government, the rest of the diplomats and defense officials and all these people, they're still going to continue working with Taiwan on a regular basis, but the top leaders think very differently. So Taiwan needs to offer its value in a very transactional way, rather than thinking we're a democracy, we're a champion for certain values, or it's a chip island that somehow needs to retain that leadership. I don't think these arguments go that well with Trump himself, as well as some of his top level officials. So I think that's where Taiwan's value is. Of course, there's tariffs and all these other things that Trump really wants. And this is, again, right, what can Taiwan offer and not? It actually is a very interesting time for Taiwan to recalibrate its own value, its interests, and what it really wants, rather than thinking the U.S. is a close friend or ally. I would say not to think in that framework, but truly from sort of the interests, both business as well as national interest point of view. Because at the end of the day, Taiwan has to depend on itself. It cannot rely on the goodwill and good gesture from other countries. It would be nice to have these things, but you cannot rely on them.